So it's Shabbat Shuvah, this Sabbath of repentance, and in the midst of these holy days, the main theme is about turning and being better. And sometimes we need a role model. Sometimes we search for a tzaddik. A tzaddik is that real righteous person. We have a hard time, I think, thinking about who's the tzaddikim that are out in the world doing amazing things. And sometimes it's the people that are right next to us. Sometimes it's somebody that's so ordinary we don't even realize it. But if we just opened our eyes a little wider, we can see that there's a real power. And during these days, I need inspiration too. I'm trying to figure out this life of ours, and it's quite a ride, don't you think? It's not always so easy. And where are we going to find those little sources of inspiration? Well, I remember hearing a story from when I was a child, and I didn't understand it at all. It was a nice story, and people told it all the time. But I ended up in rabbinical school at some point. That might be obvious by now. And during that time in rabbinical school, I read the real short story, and it opened my eyes in such a dramatic way, because it wasn't just about a tzaddik, a righteous person in front of us. It was how we can be that person's student. It was how we can be inspired so we can be just a little bit more like that person. Well, once upon a time, there was this congregation, this community, and the rabbi always disappeared just at the point before the high holy days. It's not a bad idea, and the more I think about it. And at a certain point, saying these slichot prayers, these, I guess we translate them as penitential prayers. It's prayers asking for forgiveness. And they're deep and they're heartfelt. And you say them often in the month of Elul leading up to the high holy days, the days of awe. And this rabbi, the rabbi of Nemirov, he would always vanish. And nobody knew where he was. He would really disappear. He wasn't in the synagogue and he wasn't in the Beit Midrash. The Beit Midrash is the study hall. It wasn't leading a minyan, and he wasn't at home, and his home was always open. The door was unlocked. The door was even open, but it was the rabbi, and nobody would really take anything from the rabbi's house. So people would wonder all of the time, where could he be? Where should he be? How come he's not leading services? So there were all of these kinds of questions, but he was such a thoughtful person, and he was a good leader, and he took good care of these people in Nemirov, that they were certain he just went up to heaven. He just went up to heaven. And a rabbi, by the way, has plenty of business to take care of before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Jews, God bless them, they need livelihood, and they need some peace and good health and good matches, all of these things that they're thinking about in the old world. They want to be pious and they want to be good, and their sins keep getting them into trouble. They are always missing the mark because they keep missing the mark. So what do they think? They think that the rabbi can help, and he is so righteous that he goes all the way up to heaven and defends the people of his town directly to God. One day there's a visitor in this town, and he's a litvak. Do you know what a litvak is? Some of you do. Some of you are saying, me! A litvak is somebody from Lithuania, one of these Jewish folks from Lithuania. It's a Polish term, but it's somebody who's kind of authoritarian and was a little bit more rigid. He wasn't looking at the joy of Torah and the joy of living the Jewish life. He was somebody that was really super serious and kind of strict. And so this litvak comes into the town, and he's laughing at all of these people, thinking it's narishkeit, it's silliness to think that the rabbi goes up to heaven defending all of the people of Nemirov up to God. And so this litvak is wondering what's really going on here. And he's asking questions, and nobody really knows what's happening. They're really quite certain that their rabbi went up to heaven. And when they ask this guest, the litvak, where do you think he is? And he's like, it's none of my business, and I don't really care. But inside, he totally cares, and he wants to find out, because he's a litvak. He needs the answers. He's trying to figure it all out. He needs to know. So that same night, right after the evening prayers, right after Mariv, everybody's going home, and the Litvak follows the rabbi back to his house. And the rabbi goes into the house, and the Litvak sneaks inside after him. And the rabbi is getting ready for bed. This is a little disturbing. He goes in ready for bed, and the Litvak is hiding underneath the bed. He wants to see everything that happens and everywhere he goes. So the next morning, the family's all waking up, but the rabbi is still in bed, and he's kind of groaning in the bed, and he's tired, and everybody's up and out, and they leave the house, and it's just the rabbi in the bed and the Litvak underneath. And the rabbi doesn't know that this man is there, of course. The funny thing about the Litvak is most people might doze off and start snoring, get caught, but not him. He's so serious. He memorized a whole tractate of the Talmud, and he's just underneath the bed thinking about all of these rules and kind of going through everything. It's a fascinating person, this Litvak. So finally, the rabbi gets out of bed, and he starts to get dressed, and he pulls out his linen trousers and his long shirt, and he has his felt hat, and he has this strange belt with all of these pieces of metal on it. He takes a peasant's rope, and he puts it in his pocket, and he goes out of the bedroom into the kitchen area and goes into a closet. He takes out an axe. He puts it into his other kind of loop of his pants, and he goes out, and the Litvak is going to follow him. And he does. And he goes out of town, just staying far enough back so he won't be caught. And the rabbi is eventually going to go into this little bit of woods just outside of the town. And a few feet in, 30 feet, 40 feet in, not very far, he finds a slender tree, and he chops it down. And he breaks it into logs, and then he takes the logs and he puts them into sticks of wood. He puts them in the bundle. He puts it on his shoulder. He takes the axe, he puts it back in his pocket, and he goes back towards the town. And the Litvak is totally confused, but he also knows that he's right, because everybody thinks that this rabbi went up to heaven defending the community to God, making sure that they're going to have a good year ahead. And the Litvak knows better, he thinks, and he's just still following along until finally the rabbi goes to this poor part of town, and inside he knocks on the door, and there's a very soft voice that answers, and there's an older woman that's there, and she says, "Who is it?" And the rabbi says, "It's I." Well, what kind of an answer is that? It's I. Who is I? And he takes his accent and he hides it a bit. He pretends to be a peasant, and he says that it's I, and he uses a Russian named Vassal. It's I, Vassal. Who's Vassal, and what do you want? Says the old lady inside. I have some wood to sell you, and it's very, very cheap. And he goes inside of this house, and she is in her bed, and she can't get out. And it's a very poor house, and all of the furniture is broken, and she is in these kinds of rags, not dressed very nicely at all. And she says, "Why do you think I could buy any wood? I have nothing. You can just go." And he's like, "It's okay. It's really cheap," the rabbi says. "It's only 6 cents. I'm going to set it up for you right here." And she says, "Of course, where am I going to find 6 cents? 6 cents. And the rabbi says to her, "Listen, you have this great, powerful, mighty God. It'll be okay. You guys are going to figure it out. Right? You can owe it to me. Right now, I will set the wood right over here," because it was cold. And she says, "Well, my son isn't around. He's at work, and I can't get out of bed. This isn't helping me." She's like, "I'm going to set it up for you. I'm going to put on the fire. I'm going to make sure you stay warm, and you're not going to freeze. And you'll pay me the 6 cents whenever it happens. It's fine." So that's what the rabbi does. He walks out. He takes his axe. He leaves all of the firewood inside of her house. And he just goes about his own way, singing the penitential prayers, the slichot, little by little, asking for forgiveness, while he was working, as he walks out of the house and as he goes back onto the street. Now the Litvak, remember, sees all of this. He's a witness. He notices everything. And the Litvak changes his approach, and he becomes a student of this rabbi, a rabbi he doesn't even know. And ever after, whenever another student, another disciple tells how the rabbi of Nemirov ascends to the heavens at the time of the Slichot prayers, nobody is able to find him. The Litvak doesn't laugh anymore like he used to. He only adds quietly, if not higher. We can find some inspiration on how do we act in such a way that we can make people feel like they're up in heaven with us, that we are close to God as possible, that we act sort of like the angels in our better, finer moments. Can we find the strength to find other people to inspire us so that they can say such a story about us one day? Wouldn't that be nice? It is in the midst of this 10 days of turning. Let's try and find a way that we can be inspired so we can live even higher than how we have been. That this will be the year where there will be love and generosity and commitment and kindness, just like the rabbi of Nemirov showed. Okay, let's turn